All right, let's dive right in. If you're an investor, you're constantly staring at a buffet of choices, right? Stocks, bonds, funds, and they all promise different returns. But here's the problem. What happens when those returns are measured over completely different timeframes? How do you actually compare them? Make a true apples to apples comparison. Well, that's exactly what we're going to crack open today. So let's imagine a scenario. You're looking over your portfolio and you see three different securities. They've all made you money, which is great. Your job is simple. Figure out which one was the best performer. Seems easy enough, but there's always a catch, isn't there? First up, we've got Security A. It's handed you a solid 6.2% return. Hey, not too shabby. And you held on to it for exactly 100 days. Okay, remember that. Next on the list is Security B. This one's showing a 2.0% return. Now, just looking at it, that seems kind of small compared to Security A, right? But, and this is the important part, you only held it for 4 weeks. And finally, we have Security C. It came in at 5.0% over the last 3 months. So let's recap. We've got 3 different returns over 3 totally different periods, 100 days, 4 weeks, and 3 months. So how on earth are we supposed to figure out which one is actually the best? Trying to compare these numbers directly is kind of pointless. It's like asking who's faster, a guy who just ran a marathon, a woman who ran a 100-meter dash, or someone who just did a 5K. They all ran different distances. To find out who's really the fastest, you'd need a common metric, like kilometers per hour. Well, in finance, we need the exact same thing for our returns. And that brings us right to our solution, the secret weapon that lets us standardize everything so we can finally make a fair comparison. It's called annualization. This is how we turn our financial apples and oranges back into just apples. So what is an annualized return? Think of it as a universal translator. It's a formula that takes a return from any time period, a day, a week, 100 days, you name it, and it scales it up to show you what that return would look like if it kept up that same pace for 1 full year. Now, the real power behind this formula is the idea of compounding. See, we're not just stretching the return out over a year. We're calculating what would happen if the gains from each little period were reinvested in the next one and the next one. It's this process of projecting and compounding that gives us a true, standardized picture of an investment's horsepower. Let's break this down into 4 simple steps, okay? First, you find your growth factor. Just add 1 to your return. Easy. Second, you find your annualizing factor, that little C. This is just how many of your periods fit into a year. So for a 3-month return, C is 4. For a 100-day return, C would be 365 divided by 100. Third, you take that growth factor and raise it to the power of C. That's the compounding part. And finally, you just subtract 1 to turn it back into a simple percentage. That's it. Okay, theory is one thing, but let's actually apply this to our puzzle from the beginning. We've got our 3 securities, we've got our formula. Let's put this tool to work and find out which one really delivered the most bang for our buck. And here it is. This table just says it all. Check it out. Security A, with its 6.2% return, annualizes to a very respectable 24.55%. Security C, with 5% over 3 months, that comes out to 21.55% annually. But look at Security B, that seemingly tiny 2% return over just 4 weeks. When you compound that out for a full year, it explodes to an annualized return of 29.37%. So, get this. Security B, the one that looked like the weakling of the group, was actually the star performer by a long shot. As soon as we put them all on the same 1-year racetrack, we uncovered the true rate of growth. It was never about the biggest raw number. It was about who was working the hardest over time. Okay, so we've seen how powerful compounding is when we do it, say, quarterly or monthly. But what if we took that idea to its absolute logical extreme? What if we compounded not just daily or hourly, but every second, every single instant? Well, that theoretical limit takes us to a really fascinating concept that's a huge deal in financial modeling: continuous compounding. So why is this concept so beloved by quants and financial engineers? Well, it has this one incredibly elegant property. With normal returns, if you want to combine the return from year 1 and year 2, you have to do some messy multiplication with the growth factors. But with continuously compounded returns, you can just add them together. That simple additive property makes insanely complex calculations much, much easier, which is why it's a cornerstone of modern finance. All right, so we've gone from a simple problem all the way into some pretty advanced stuff. Let's bring it back to what really matters. Why is any of this important for you and your money? Well, it's all about making better, smarter decisions. It's about giving you the right tools to see clearly through all the noise. So, let's wrap up with the key takeaways. Number 1, annualization is your best friend for making fair comparisons, period. Number 2, it helps you see the real performance that might be hidden by weird time frames. Using this is absolutely critical for smart portfolio management. And the most important rule of all? From this day forward, promise me you will never, ever compare raw returns over different holding periods again. You know, this simple idea really does change how you look at performance. It's like getting a new pair of glasses that lets you see everything more clearly. So the real question is, now that you have this tool, what hidden winners, or maybe even hidden losers, are you going to find when you take a fresh look at your own portfolio?